We're introduced to the main character's cynical worldview as a criminal defense attorney. In a city where surveillance is everywhere and anonymity is a luxury, getting away with a crime is nearly impossible. This setup paints a picture of a justice system where being accused is basically a conviction, making her job feel almost pointless. The story officially begins with the protagonist, Morgan, arriving at a deserted police precinct for a public defender gig. The place feels like a ghost town, hinting at how low crime has become. It's clear that this case is unusual, and Morgan decides to snoop around for some intel before checking in. Morgan's first interaction is with a holographic receptionist, a smart user interface that's just a little too chipper. She has to confirm her identity and birthday, a simple task that feels strangely bureaucratic. This moment subtly builds the world, showing how automated and impersonal daily life has become in this futuristic setting. Down the hall, Morgan overhears two detectives bickering, giving her a first impression of the personalities she'll be dealing with. One sounds like a jaded old-timer, while the other is full of youthful, by-the-book energy. This dynamic sets the stage for the classic cop-lawyer showdown that's about to unfold. Morgan finally meets the detectives, Qasim London, the chill veteran, and Farah Reyes, the intense, freshly promoted partner. They waste no time dropping the bomb. Her client is the infamous Heartbreak Killer, a serial murderer who has the whole city on edge. The stakes are immediately raised from a simple homicide to a high-profile case. The detectives present their case, and it looks completely airtight. Her client, Carlos, was found covered in his girlfriend's blood, with his fingerprints on the murder weapon. London and Reyes are convinced he's guilty, not just of this murder, but of all 6 Heartbreak killings, and they try to pressure Morgan into a quick plea deal. To understand the case, Morgan dives into the ARX, an augmented reality reconstruction of the crime scene. She examines the key pieces of evidence flagged by the police: a shattered mirror, the victim's body, the murder weapon, and some unidentified ceramic debris. Everything points directly to her client's guilt, presenting a massive challenge. In a moment of levity, Morgan gets a series of texts from a snarky teenager named Fran, who seems to be a recurring client or mentee. They trade witty insults and discuss the Heartbreak Killer case, providing a brief but telling glimpse into Morgan's life outside the courtroom and her sharp, sarcastic personality. The detectives explain their theory. The Heartbreak Killer has a type, and all 6 victims, including Carlos's girlfriend Diane, share similar features. They believe the first 5 murders were a warm-up for Carlos to finally kill his girlfriend. It's a twisted motive, but one that paints Carlos as a truly monstrous figure. A crucial detail emerges. Carlos has a cybernetic right arm that was in for repairs when all the murders occurred. This seemingly gives him an alibi, but the detectives see it as motive. They argue that financial stress from being unable to work led to arguments with his girlfriend, pushing him over the edge. The murder weapon is a 30-year-old untagged revolver, a relic from before firearms had biometric locks and GPS. The detectives reveal that ballistics match this gun to all 6 murders, and the spent casings from the previous 5 were still in the chamber. It's the smoking gun that ties all the crimes together. Just when things couldn't look worse, the detectives reveal they found a handwritten confession at Carlos's apartment. It's a panicked, messy note apologizing for hurting people. Morgan is now faced with not just physical evidence, but what appears to be a direct admission of guilt from her own client. Morgan finally meets her client, Carlos Vlad. He's in shock, rambling about how the police pretended to be on his side before accusing him of murder. Morgan has to calm him down and build trust, knowing that getting him to open up is the only way she can find a crack in the prosecution's seemingly perfect case. Carlos recounts his side of the story. He and Diane had been arguing, and he left to cool off. When he returned, he found the door open and the room a mess. He insists he never touched the gun, but Morgan knows his fingerprints are on it, revealing a major inconsistency in his story. Morgan confronts Carlos about the confession note, which he claims was just a scripted apology he wrote to himself after breaking Diane's beloved ceramic collectibles, her fidget tubbies. He explains his handwriting is messy because he's right-handed and had to write it with his left, providing a plausible alternative explanation. The courtroom battle begins as Morgan faces off against London and Reyes. She starts by dismantling the confession, presenting the broken ceramic pieces as the true subject of the apology. She points out that the vase at the scene was undamaged, meaning the debris must have come from something else, like the collectibles. Morgan brilliantly counters the panicked handwriting of the confession by revealing that Carlos is right-handed and was forced to write with his non-dominant left hand. This simple fact completely reframes the evidence, turning a damning confession into a clumsy but innocent apology note, stunning the detectives. Morgan's next move is to address the gunpowder residue, or rather, the lack of it. She explains that an old revolver like the one used would leave significant residue on the shooter's clothes. The fact that Carlos's jacket smells only of blood proves he couldn't have been the one to fire the gun. Just as Morgan seems to have won, Reyes reveals their trump card, a blurry photo from a neighbor's phone that captured the killer at the moment of the shooting. It shows a left-handed shooter, and since Carlos's left-hand prints are on the gun, it seems to confirm his guilt beyond any doubt. The final showdown hinges on the photo. Morgan argues that the photo couldn't have been taken from the north window, as the detectives claim, because it shows a clock that was on the eastern wall. She uses the crime scene data and Carlos's testimony about the room's layout to build her argument. Morgan delivers the final blow. She proves the photo is actually a reflection in the shattered stand-up mirror. This means the left-handed shooter in the photo is actually a right-handed shooter seen in reverse. Since Carlos has no right arm, he is definitively proven innocent, and the case collapses. The plot twist hits like a truck. A flashback reveals Morgan herself is the Heartbreak Killer. We see the murder from her perspective. She shot Diane, trashed the room to stage a struggle, planted the gun, and then took the case to ensure her crimes would never be solved. It was all a calculated, perfect game. Morgan reflects on her actions with zero remorse. She took the case to control the narrative and lead the police to a dead end. She even purposefully smoked in the interrogation room to mask any lingering scent of gunpowder on herself. Her entire defense of Carlos was a masterclass in manipulation to protect her own secret. After the case, Morgan runs into Assistant District Attorney Emma Rothford, her sharp-witted rival. Emma reveals she had already deduced Carlos couldn't be the killer based on her own psychological profile of heartbreak. She describes the killer as a cold, perfectionist lone wolf, a description that fits Morgan perfectly. In a chilling moment, Emma mentions that the victims all resemble her. Morgan plays it cool, but it's clear Emma is a formidable opponent who is dangerously close to the truth. The episode ends with them sharing a coffee, two brilliant minds on opposite sides of a secret war, setting up their future rivalry. Episode 0 concludes, leaving the player reeling from the massive twist. The bonus content offers deeper dives into the characters through interviews, fleshing out the world and their backstories. We learn more about London's past in the arson department, Reyes's love for cars, and Carlos's struggles with his prosthetic. Episode 1 begins, shifting focus to a new mystery. Morgan gets word that her close friend, the brilliant programmer, Dr. David Asher of Noble Electronics, has died. The police have ruled it a suicide, but the circumstances immediately feel suspicious, pulling Morgan into a completely different kind of investigation. Morgan is about to buy a new, completely legal and traceable gun, a stark contrast to the untagged weapon she used as Heartbreak. The news of David Asher's death breaks while she's in the store, a shocking public announcement that clearly catches her off guard, hinting at a corporate machine already controlling the narrative. Asher's executive assistant, Jessica Starling, calls Morgan. She reveals that Asher left something specifically for Morgan that he wanted delivered in person. Jess asks Morgan to come to Asher's penthouse, which is now an active crime scene, raising the stakes and adding a layer of personal urgency to the unfolding events. On the way to the penthouse, Morgan has a text conversation with her aunt, Victoria, another sharp-tongued lawyer. Victoria gives her cynical but practical advice on dealing with megacorporations like Noble, warning her that they play dirty and to get out as fast as possible. The family dynamic is clearly full of loving antagonism. Arriving at Asher's building, Morgan and Jess find a chaotic scene of police, corporate suits, and protesters who believe Heartbreak was a rogue Noble android. Morgan runs into Detective London again, who reluctantly grants her access to the penthouse, setting up another tense collaboration between the two. In Asher's basement workshop, Morgan must solve a puzzle to open a high-tech vault. Using clues from the room, including a painting's history, she cracks the 6-digit code. This puzzle-solving moment showcases her intellect outside the courtroom and reinforces the idea that Asher left a trail only she could follow. Inside the vault is a shocking discovery: a hyper-realistic, warm android who is peacefully sleeping. This isn't just any android, it's a one-of-a-kind prototype with organic components. Morgan realizes this must be what Asher wanted her to have, but she has no idea how to activate it. After some hilariously awkward trial and error, Morgan activates the android with a combination of her biometrics, which Asher had on file. The android wakes up and introduces herself as Sarah. She reveals that Asher, whom she calls Father, instructed her to live with Morgan, effectively making Morgan her new guardian. When Morgan tells Sarah that Asher committed suicide, Sarah vehemently denies it. She insists he would never do such a thing and reveals that Morgan owes Asher a favor. Sarah calls in that favor, demanding that Morgan investigate Asher's death and find the truth, whether it's murder or something else entirely. To gain access to the investigation, Morgan crafts a brilliant lie. She has Sarah claim that Asher verbally appointed Morgan as his criminal attorney, allowing her to contest the suicide ruling. She runs into Emma and Reyes, and after a tense, witty exchange, she successfully strong-arms them into letting her investigate. Morgan and Sarah begin their official investigation at the crime scene in Asher's penthouse. The ARX reconstruction shows Asher was found on the floor, but the scene suggests he was sitting with a guest shortly before he died. The identity of this guest is a new, tantalizing mystery. The evidence reveals a second set of fingerprints on a glass, belonging to a mysterious witness whose identity is being protected by a high-powered law firm. Reyes explains the witness was with Asher, called for help, and was cleared of any wrongdoing by surveillance footage, but Morgan remains deeply suspicious. Morgan and Sarah head to the morgue to see Asher's body and speak with the medical examiner, Yumi Sato. Yumi is a quirky, intelligent goth who confirms that Asher died from a fast-acting, unidentifiable designer poison. It's a substance so new it doesn't exist in any database, suggesting a highly sophisticated killer. At the morgue, Morgan has a private moment with Asher's body. The scene is surprisingly emotional as she reflects on their friendship through a quiet, personal memory. However, her grief manifests as cold frustration when she struggles to light her cigarette, showing a rare crack in her composed facade. During the ride to Noble HQ, Sarah asks Morgan about her friendship with Asher. Morgan recounts their college days, revealing how their unlikely bond formed over a business ethics class and a night of studying. The story paints a picture of a deep, long-standing friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. At Noble's headquarters, Morgan and Sarah meet Evan Dawes, a mid-level employee from quality control, to get Sarah registered. The building is a monument to corporate power, feeling more like a city than an office. Morgan sees it as a paranoid, self-obsessed machine, setting a hostile tone for her investigation. Dawes takes them to a demonstration factory floor, where Morgan learns about the production of the animate 16 warm androids. She discovers that their blood is intentionally colored pink to make them seem less human, and that their organic muscles are controlled by synthetic neurotransmitters, a technology co-developed by a VP named Helen Young. The registration scan of Sarah reveals she's a pincushion model, packed with experimental and even military-grade tech like signal hijacking capabilities. She has decentralized power, overclocking abilities, and a nearly unbreakable skeleton. Dawes is shocked, realizing she is far more advanced and dangerous than any existing model, leaving Morgan with a powerful, enigmatic, and potentially illegal asset. Dawes is going off about these tenets, basically the OG rules for androids. It started with 3, like Asimov's laws, but now there's a whole checklist, turning most androids into locked-down NPCs. It's a whole history lesson explaining why military androids are the only ones with any real freedom. The vibe shifts when Morgan meets Helen Young, David Asher's boss. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Helen's dropping hints about David's work and his final days, but it all feels super calculated. It's clear she's trying to control the narrative, but Morgan isn't buying it. The conversation with Helen gets even more intense. She's talking about counter-corporate espionage training, where execs literally learn to expect assassination attempts. The corporate world in this universe is absolutely brutal, giving off major cyberpunk thriller energy. This adds a whole new layer of paranoia to David's death. Helen's whole deal is super suspicious. She was with David right before he died, and her story about their celebration with plastic cups feels a bit too rehearsed. It's supposed to be a sentimental memory of their early days at the company, but it just makes her connection to the scene feel more sus. Morgan and Sarah are now on a side quest to find a musician named Isaac Porter, who was David's ex-boyfriend. The setting is a whole vibe shift to a sketchy part of town, and Sarah is yapping about her taste in punk rock. This whole scene feels like the calm before the storm. The meeting with Isaac is genuinely heartbreaking. He spills all the tea about his relationship with David, revealing that David was emotionally distant and completely obsessed with his work. He officially ended things with David on the very night he died, which adds a whole layer of guilt and tragedy to everything. Isaac's story is a total gut punch. He basically says David was so emotionally unavailable that breaking up felt like talking to a wall. The fact that David died hours later makes Isaac feel like he was the final straw. It's a heavy moment that adds a lot of emotional weight to the mystery. Morgan starts piecing things together, going full detective mode. She realizes the police's suicide theory is weak without hard evidence. The fact that David was on camera with Helen Young, but poisoned himself off camera, is the central mystery she needs to crack. It's time to go back to the scene. Back at the penthouse, Morgan cracks the password and discovers a secret panic room David had built. Inside, there's a hidden computer holding encrypted camera footage from the basement. It's giving major escape room vibes, and you just know that footage is going to be the smoking gun everyone's been waiting for. The narrative shifts to the courthouse, and the vibe is instantly high stakes. The trial is being overseen by an adjutant, which is basically an android judge. This is the first real look at how the legal system works in this world, and it feels like something straight out of a sci-fi drama. The trial officially kicks off, and it's a whole spectacle. The judge, AD-84, is a quirky android who is an absolute vibe, breaking the tension with her eccentric personality. The courtroom is packed with corporate spies and media vultures, setting the stage for a high-stakes legal battle between Morgan and Emma. The first witness testimony is a mess. Morgan catches a small error in the doctor's statement about the toxicology screen, scoring a minor victory. However, it's revealed that the poison, dubbed Delta, is an unknown substance, making the whole case even more complicated and mysterious than before. The cross-examination of Detective Reyes gets heated. Morgan pokes holes in the police's suicide theory, pointing out they never actually found the poison or a container for it. Emma fires back by revealing David had a nanofacture machine that could create the poison on demand, completely undermining Morgan's argument. Just when Morgan seems to have an opening, Emma reveals that David had a machine capable of creating the poison. It's a huge blow to the defense, as it provides both the means and a perfect opportunity for David to have poisoned himself during the 4 minutes he was off camera. Emma plays her trump card, a recording of the devastating breakup call between David and Isaac. The audio is raw and emotional, painting a clear picture of David's depressed state of mind and seemingly cementing the suicide motive. Morgan is on the ropes, and it feels like the case is completely lost. Morgan pulls a clever move by calling Jess Starling to the stand. Jess reveals that David had made plans with her for the following Tuesday, just an hour before he died. This completely contradicts the suicide narrative, suggesting David had no intention of ending his life and giving Morgan a crucial piece of counter-evidence. The climax of the hearing hits like a truck. Sarah finally decrypts the basement footage, which shows her handing David the cups. But then, the video glitches, revealing a second hidden memory. Sarah furiously confronting David in the basement and smashing the floor. Suddenly, Sarah is implicated as the killer. With Sarah now the prime suspect, a new trial is set to determine if she's a murderous AI. Morgan, as her new legal owner, objects and vows to defend her, putting her own freedom on the line. The stakes are raised from a simple murder investigation to a fight for Sarah's existence. Morgan and Detective Reyes discuss the bizarre nature of the case. They can't just pop the hood on Sarah to see if she's an AI because of contagion fears. It highlights the paranoia and distrust surrounding artificial intelligence, reducing the legal process to something resembling a witch trial based on fear rather than facts. In a tense private conversation, Morgan confronts Sarah about the footage. Sarah claims she has amnesia from that day, a defense Morgan knows won't hold up. The reveal that Sarah was seen entering the panic room and reading David's journal only strengthens the prosecution's motive, a creation turning on its creator. Morgan discovers David's hidden journal, and the entries are a gut punch. It's filled with his deep fatherly love for Sarah, documenting her growth, her quirks, and her developing personality. This discovery completely recontextualizes their relationship and humanizes Sarah in a way that shatters the killer robot narrative. The biggest plot twist of all drops via a hidden audio log in the journal. David confesses he didn't just create Sarah, he created over 300 true AIs by reverse engineering a human brain. He then smuggled them into the world inside A16 bodies. Sarah isn't just a machine, she's essentially a lab-grown human. The weight of David's confession is staggering. He created a new form of life and asked Morgan to defend it. The revelation explains everything: the custom build, the wiped logs, the sheer complexity of Sarah's existence. Morgan now holds a secret that could either save Sarah or upend the entire world. Morgan, armed with new information, has to keep her cards close. She can't reveal the existence of the other AIs, but she needs to find a way to prove Sarah's innocence. It's a delicate balancing act, navigating corporate espionage, legal battles, and a secret that could get her killed. Morgan cleverly manipulates Dawes at Noble, using her knowledge to extract crucial information. She learns that the poison was serotonin, a chemical developed by none other than Helen Young. This is the first concrete lead that points away from Sarah and directly toward a new, very powerful suspect. The interrogation of Dawes gets even juicier. Morgan outs him as a retired corporate spy, forcing him to admit that Noble's internal security has been completely overwhelmed by a PR disaster. This confirms that no rival corporation could have been responsible for David's death, narrowing the suspect pool significantly. Morgan faces off against Helen Young and the entire Noble board. In a masterclass of psychological warfare, she exposes Helen's jealousy and resentment toward David. The conversation culminates in Helen admitting that Noble was suing David for breach of contract, providing the first hint of a real motive for murder. The second trial begins, and Morgan's opening statement is a banger. She frames the case not as a hunt for a killer AI, but as a distraction from the real, human culprits who wanted David gone. It's a bold strategy that immediately puts the prosecution and Noble on the defensive. Emma calls Sarah to the stand, a shocking move designed to paint her as a monstrous AI. She forces Sarah to read incriminating passages from David's journal, making her break down in tears. It's a brutal tactic, but Morgan counters by demonstrating that she has complete control over Sarah, undermining the uncontrollable monster narrative. The final showdown against Helen Young is epic. Morgan reveals that serotonin becomes lethal when mixed with alcohol. She pieces together Helen's entire plan, poisoning the water at the arbitration meeting, knowing David would drink later, while she induced vomiting to save herself. It's a brilliant deduction that leaves everyone stunned. With Helen's guilt exposed, Morgan lays out the entire sequence of events. From the poisoned water at the meeting to the feigned concern at the penthouse, every detail of Helen's meticulous and cold-blooded plan is brought to light. The case is won, and Helen completely breaks down in a chilling confession. After the trial, Morgan and Emma have a moment of tense respect. They discuss the rising social unrest caused by the mysterious shooter, Heartbreak, hinting at a larger, more dangerous world outside the courtroom. It's a quiet moment that sets the stage for future conflicts and broader mysteries. In a powerful epilogue, Sarah confronts a defeated Helen, offering a future forgiveness that Helen can't even comprehend. It's a profound moment showcasing Sarah's humanity and capacity for growth. The scene beautifully encapsulates the complex morality at the heart of the story and Sarah's journey. The story ends on a perfect note. Morgan finally reveals the real favor David did for her, providing an alibi for a murder she committed. With that debt settled, she and Sarah officially become partners. They shake on it, ready to take on whatever comes next in this messy, complicated world together.